Imagine stepping into a dense primeval forest, the air thick with humidity, the canopy looming like a green cathedral, and then a shadow passes overhead. But it's not a bird, it's a dragonfly, one the size of a modern eagle. What would you do if insects the size of dogs, or even small cars, were crawling, flying, and hunting all around you? Would you run, hide, or try to survive in a world where you are the small, helpless creature? Long before humans, long before even the dinosaurs ruled the earth, this planet belonged to them. Giant insects that would make your skin crawl just imagining them. Some had wings that spanned over 2 feet. Others slithered like snakes, but with dozens of legs and armor plating. And here's the most terrifying part. They didn't just exist, they thrived. If you're into bizarre mysteries like this, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We dig up the wildest stories science and history forgot to tell you. Around 300 million years ago, the Earth was unrecognizable. The continents were clumped together in a supercontinent called Pangaea, and the climate was warm, swampy, and thick with oxygen. Towering trees dominated the landscape, stretching over 30 meters high. But what truly made this period terrifying wasn't the flora, it was the fauna. This was the Carboniferous period, a time before dinosaurs, when insects reigned supreme. Fossils tell us of a world where dragonflies the size of seagulls, millipedes longer than a grown man, and scorpions the size of house cats were not anomalies. They were commonplace. Take Meganeura, for example. This giant dragonfly had a wingspan of nearly 70 centimeters, over 2 feet. It ruled the skies like a raptor, preying on other insects with terrifying precision. Then there was Arthropleura, a creature that looked like a massive centipede, stretching more than 2 meters in length and armored like a tank. It slithered through the underbrush like a silent nightmare. But why were these creatures so massive? The key lies in the air they breathed. The Earth's atmosphere at the time had much higher oxygen levels than today. Some estimates suggest up to 35%, compared to our current 21%. This abundance of oxygen allowed these creatures to grow far larger than anything we see today, because their respiratory systems were far more efficient in that environment. With no large vertebrates to challenge them, insects had no natural predators. They were the top of the food chain, the apex hunters, the overlords of the primeval world. In these ancient swamps, the rules were different. Every rustling leaf might hide a predator larger than your head. Every step forward might stir a giant centipede from beneath the roots. And the skies, they weren't a safe escape. There, too, the giants ruled. This wasn't science fiction, this was Earth, and it belonged to them. It's easy to think of insects as minor players in the history of life. But during the Carboniferous period, they were not just part of the ecosystem, they were the ecosystem. The rise of the giants. Let's break down why these insects grew to such unimaginable sizes. First, we have the oxygen factor. Insects don't breathe through lungs like mammals. They rely on a system of tiny tubes called tracheae, which deliver oxygen directly to their tissues. This system works fine for small creatures, but for larger ones, it becomes inefficient unless there's more oxygen in the air. With oxygen levels nearly double what we have today, even the tracheal system of bugs became supercharged. They could grow without limits. Evolution seized the opportunity, but there's another twist, the lack of competition. Vertebrates hadn't evolved to dominate land yet. Amphibians existed, but they were slow and mostly aquatic. Reptiles were just beginning to emerge, so insects filled every niche. They were scavengers, predators, even herbivores the size of wolves in today's scale. Monsters beneath our feet. Let's talk about Arthropleura again, the tank centipede. This creature could grow up to 2.6 meters long. Imagine that crawling beneath your bed. Fossils show it had strong, armored segments and likely fed on decaying plant matter. It wasn't aggressive, but its size alone was enough to keep it safe. Then there were the scorpions, not the kind you crush with a shoe. Pulmonoscorpius kirktonensis, for instance, could reach 70 centimeters. That's bigger than a house cat and venomous. And the Meganeura. Scientists believe it hunted other insects and maybe even small amphibians. Its eyes were massive, compound, and terrifying. It didn't just fly. It patrolled the skies. These weren't exaggerations. These are facts, carved in stone, dug from ancient rock beds and swamps. What if they were still here? Now let's play with a terrifying thought. What if the Earth's oxygen levels spiked again? Could these giants return? Climate scientists have actually studied this. A spike in plant life, followed by a drop in carbon dioxide and rise in oxygen, could theoretically recreate the conditions of the Carboniferous. Theoretically. In lab settings, modern insects have shown that they can grow larger when exposed to more oxygen. This includes cockroaches, beetles, even dragonflies. So yes, it's possible. Now combine that with modern fears. There are dozens of conspiracy theories and eyewitness accounts from remote regions, deep in the Amazon, for example, where people claim to have seen dragonfly-like creatures with wingspans of over 1 meter. No evidence, of course. But no one wants to go looking either. Is it just folklore, hallucinations, or something more? Scientists may laugh off these stories, but history tells us that Earth once supported such life, and it might again. Nature has a habit of repeating itself, especially when pushed. By the way, if this kind of story grips you the way it grips us, give the video a like and drop a comment below. Which of these prehistoric monsters gave you the biggest chills so far? So, what happened? If the Earth was such a paradise for these massive creatures, why don't we see them anymore? The answer is written in the very air around us. Toward the end of the Carboniferous period, something shifted. Massive volcanic eruptions, the rise of dense forests that trapped more carbon dioxide, and a general cooling of the planet caused oxygen levels to plummet. The atmosphere fell from around 35% oxygen to closer to 21%, levels we're familiar with today. And for the insect giants, that was catastrophic. Their massive bodies, once powered by an oxygen-rich environment, became liabilities. They couldn't get enough air to survive. The exoskeletons that once served as armor became traps. One by one, they died out or shrank dramatically in size. But that wasn't the only threat. Around the same time, vertebrates, particularly reptiles, began to evolve rapidly. They developed stronger lungs, more efficient circulatory systems, and greater mobility. As oxygen levels dropped, these creatures thrived, while the giant insects suffocated and vanished. The balance of power on Earth had shifted forever. The age of insects was over, and in its place, new rulers rose, creatures with bones, brains, and eventually the capacity to dominate not just ecosystems, but the entire planet. But here's the eerie part. The fall of the insect giants wasn't caused by an asteroid or an alien invasion. It was the air itself turning against them. A subtle, invisible change in the composition of the atmosphere was enough to wipe out an entire class of super predators. Now imagine, what if our atmosphere shifted again? What if today's insects, those tiny creatures we swat without thinking, were suddenly given the conditions to grow without limits? Would we notice before it was too late? We often think of human dominance as guaranteed. But the Earth has had many rulers, and we are just the latest. They came long before us. They ruled without cities, without tools, without fire, only instinct and oxygen. For millions of years, giant insects were the apex life forms on Earth, and then they were gone. But not because of war, not because of predators, because the planet simply changed its mind. It's humbling, isn't it? We think of ourselves as the pinnacle of evolution, but Earth's history is filled with forgotten kings, creatures that once ruled everything and were erased by forces far beyond their control. What if those forces return? What if, buried deep in remote jungles or hidden under thick canopies, something ancient is still alive, waiting for the right atmosphere to awaken once more? Maybe the real horror isn't that they're gone, but that they're only dormant. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and tell us in the comments which prehistoric giant insect you'd never want to meet face to face. Until the next mystery, Stay curious, and maybe keep your windows closed.